The food service, hospitality, and retail industries are evolving in ways you've never heard of until now. Hosted by global industry technovator Rob Grimes and powered by the IFBTA, TechBytes is your go-to podcast, putting technology innovation and trends on the menu.
Welcome to another episode of TechBytes, and this time we're actually going to feature something different. And I'm going to bet that a lot of our members and our listeners of this podcast may never have known about different subsections of the food and beverage industry, the technology industry, the travel industry, the hospitality industry. But that's going to be the subject of which I'm going to have a conversation today, and I can already tell this is going to be a good one, with Rick Welch, who is the food and beverage ambassador. Food and beverage ambassador. What a great term for a show called Food and Beverage at Sea. So, Rick, welcome to TechBytes.
Thanks, Rob. Great to be here.
All right. So everybody's like scratching their head. Food and beverage ambassador. They got that one. I'm sure they got that. But food and beverage at sea. So can you maybe put together food and beverage at sea and the food and beverage ambassador for us?
So Food and Beverage at Sea is a program. It's a great platform. It's a trade show specifically designed for the cruise industry itself, which is large. There's 140 some odd cruise companies, over about 120 cruise companies in 140 countries that all serve food and beverage on board. And what this does is it presents a show that is unlike anything else. It is actually the premier food and beverage show for the culinary world of cruising. And that ranges from different dynamics of the cruise experience. It could be an exploration cruise, which is a unique niche market that has goes into the poles, the North Pole, South Pole. It could be a luxury cruise.
Well, we're not talking about these just big mega ships here, because when I think about cruise, I think
Right.
about, we're talking about river cruises here. We're talking about the smaller
Absolutely.
adventure
There's so many.
pieces. It's the whole industry, right?
Correct. There's so many layers to this thing. Obviously, people see the commercials for the big 3 or 4 and so forth, but there's so much depth in the industry. But at the core of it, when you take a cruise, you obviously recognize the beauty and excellence of the ship staff, the food and beverage, the ports, the destinations, and the entire experience. And what we've done is we've kind of lifted up a segment of that, which is the food and beverage experience, and put it into a trade show format, which is the world's best. I mean, you have people from all over the planet that come to this show. And it's definitely attended by the executives from the cruise industry, the buyers, the procurement groups, as well as just a variety of vendors. And these vendors are not just your regular run-of-the-mill vendors.
But this is a subset. Food and beverage at sea is a subset of a larger
Correct.
event. Is that correct? And that event?
Correct. It's called the larger group, which I call the mothership, is Sea Trade Cruise Global.
And by the way, there's many seats, because I learned this because I was in Singapore earlier this year at another event in Food and Hospitality Asia, which is the same group. And they were talking about sea trade that I guess is in Singapore and in a number of different places. But obviously, if you think about the cruise ship industry, maybe the mothership of the cruise ship industry as it relates to where they all come together is Florida and Miami.
Correct. That is really where the planet sort of empties into, and you really get to see everything from the shipbuilders are there, obviously the ports and destinations, ship equipment. You can find things.
It's a single place. It's a single place to go.
It's the place to go.
And so, Rick, this is part of a larger event, as you've talked about. So when is both the larger event and also when is F&B at Sea? When and where?
So Sea Trade Cruise Global is held at the Miami Beach Convention Center from April 7th through April 10th. F&B at Sea is just a few minutes away at a different convention center called Manor Wynwood, and that's April 9th and 10th.
Is that near the Wynwood Walls?
It is. Absolutely.
I know the area, very well. So if you want to think about it, what a better place, or what a great place to have F&B. You have all that art there. You have all the
Correct.
restaurants. And, when you think about, experiences in the cruise ship industry, people go on cruises. Yes, they go on beautiful ships. They get entertainment. But I got to tell you, there is a lot of time and money and focus spent on the F&B. And so what a better place, and culinary, I mean, really culinary creations, that people are
Absolutely.
buying into, big or small. So what a better place, what a great place to hold it. So your background, you're an ambassador. You're the food and beverage
Right.
ambassador. So what is your
So
background?
I help
Why are you the
So I
ambassador?
help research and understand what the industry is looking for and try to promote that, listen to the cruise executives and understand what their pain points are, and try to formulate some really meaningful sessions and ideas and just continuously edify and move forward the food and beverage program. For example, we have things, we're talking now about some technology advantages that the cruise industry may be taking advantage of. We're talking about how food can be used as fuel and medicine, whereas maybe as far back as 20 years ago, maybe that wasn't necessarily the first thing you think of when you get a 10-inch plate and you pile it 12 inches high from the buffet, and then you go back for more. Maybe the
But
guests.
I'm guessing listening to you that you actually have a background in
I
F&B.
do.
Somebody just didn't ask you to go do this. Were you a customer first, and now you're helping to pull this together, or what's your role in F&B and what's your
So my
background?
background is I'm a graduate of the Culinary Institute of America, and I've worked in the industry. I've worked in resorts and hotels, and then I actually was moved on to the food and beverage director role, from a chef role, and then into a general manager role. And I actually had Royal Caribbean Celebrity Cruises as my customer. And there's so many synergies with large group check-in, large group departures, organizations, getting guests on. I mean, when you look at, take the port of Miami, for example, you can have 8 ships straight as a string on a pier, and each ship would be unloading anywhere from 2,400 people to 5,000 people, and then loading them back in, all within a compressed 9-10 hour window, and then off they go on every berth. So there's an element of managing the chaos and organizing the chaos and orchestrating the chaos. But all of that is tied is a piece of the cruise industry that is it's just exciting. I mean, this as a former hotel executive, I can tell you without reservation that the experience that you get on a cruise ship, because of the service level, is all world. I would love to go into more detail at some point about the training that the onboard ship has, the staff on board.
Well, I think if you think about it, I mean, it is a city, and it's a
Oh
self-contained
my word,
city.
yeah.
And you're talking about high levels of service in there, because cruise ships are certainly known for that. But you're also talking about international audience. You're talking about international labor for
Correct.
sure. And I've done the food and beverage tour in a cruise ship
Nice.
just to see how they're storing. And you're right. I mean, the challenges of the cruise industry, and especially with food and beverage, because you're dealing with fresh foods as
Right.
well, you've got to get them in such a short period of time. And by the way, being a tech guy here, I got to imagine also that the technology behind that, to have that all operate efficiently, is a challenge, as well as predicting and being able to schedule, what you're going to order, what you're going to supply, the supply chain,
Absolutely.
what if something runs out, you know, because the last thing you also want to do on a cruise, I suppose, is run out of something that everybody wants.
Correct. And strategically, there's designs as to where to go for. Say, for example, you're leaving out of Miami, and the Caribbean is like the number one destination for all of the cruise industry. And say you're out for a 10-day or a 12-day cruise, there are strategic locations, different islands that can supply, fresh produce, maybe some dairy to get topped off to carry them through, because like most things in the food and beverage industry, the kitchens, the storage was not overly generous with capacity and space. It's sometimes it's
And people have to be really well trained in
oh
that
my word,
too,
yeah.
because you don't have the luxury of bringing in different people to do different things. They really have to know multiple jobs, hence the training piece of this as well.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. It is beyond striking to understand even the minutia that they go through just on a turnaround day when you've got these trucks lined up and you have things that are coming off and things that are coming on and where they have to go, these different elevators and different locations of the ship to get to these different storage units and or restaurant to have the access to get into the service areas.
I'm going to guess. I'm going to guess that there's a lot of innovation that happens both in food itself as well as how it's served, the technology behind it, because there are a lot of challenges on a cruise ship also when it comes to tech because of the metal structures and how you communicate,
Sure.
and then all the different systems being, done. And I know that the cruise ship industry helped to do the bands, before Disney did actually, and then they started to do, what food and beverages there. But I'm going to guess let's put your chef's hat on here for a
Sure.
second. If we think about the technology of food itself, they're probably one of the big industries doing things like sous vide, which has been around a long
Sure.
time, and other types of cooking techniques and storage techniques and that are maybe advanced over the rest of the industry that doesn't have the challenges.
Yeah, you're correct. I mean, some of the things that they listen, as a foodie, when you see the development and the creativity that comes out to the center of the plate, the end result is the guests are doing cartwheels. The Instagrammable dinner plates and the Instagrammable beverage options that they get presented are just, it becomes a talking point, but moreover, it becomes an engagement point. So now you're talking with your server about, hey, listen, this center of the plate item. Oh, by the way, we just left this port. It just came in this morning, and this is a local supply. Maybe it's a fish dish or what have you. And now all of a sudden you have this relationship at the dinner table with service excellence provider and the serving staff around the center of the plate item that you just ordered, which is absolutely prepared and by the thousands. And remember, they still get hot food hot and cold food cold. And that's an amazing feat in and of itself.
I've always found that very amazing to, I know you would know this certainly from coming in the hotels and doing a large banquet, which, by the way, large banquets in hotels, you have sort of a set menu,
Sure.
a few items that you're doing, right? On a cruise ship, people are able to choose pretty much today from a full menu,
Correct.
that's there. And by the way, that menu can be served in their cabin. That menu can be served in the dining room. And I think that adds a lot of challenges to it because you're catering to people and hundreds of people, thousands of people at the same time, especially in main dining rooms. And yet they're getting a choice. So it's actually more, what the hotel industry ought to learn. I bet you're going to tell me that the hotel industry can learn, from some of these techniques.
It is an apple and an orange in comparison, because what you have in the brick and mortar of the hotels is pretty static. You have some variety, but you do not have. What you do not have is, I'll give you an example: 7,600 passengers on a ship eating around the clock. So there's breakfast,
and it is around the clock.
There's breakfast, there's snacks, there's lunch, there's snacks, there's dinners, there's snacks, there's pizza, but you have these.
Some of them are drinking around the clock.
Yes,
too.
yeah,
You can get that option, right, for the unlimited.
You are
beverage.
correct. You are correct. But the fascinating point is the capacity in which to serve and execute a food and beverage menu plan on board a ship is beyond description. When you understand how this thing all formulated, from the menu design to getting the right equipment to cook the menu items, to getting the right products in, the high quality products that you need, the local sourcing, and then to get the center of the plate. And I can't tell you how many Instagrammable photos there are between, I could look at this and look at this this smoke filled drink.
I don't think that people understand sometimes. I mean, having gone to a lot of food and beverage and restaurant shows
Sure.
around the world, and if they have a salon culinaire where the chefs are doing the competition, It is extremely creative, and that all happens on the cruise ships, for sure. You said at the top that you're the food and beverage ambassador, and why did you come on? And you came on to help do content. So why don't we talk about, if somebody attends this show, what is the type of content? What are the special features or sections that they have? And then maybe what are the hot topics of today? Because you said you got your finger on the pulse. You're trying to make sure that they're getting what they need.
Absolutely. So the program is at an all-time high. We're going to have over 150 vendors that are coming into the program, and this is everything from plant-based. I'll give you an example: plant-based shrimp, which sounds unique, and it is, but the flavor profile is unbelievable. The texture is unbelievable. So you have different elements of a food and beverage vendor show mixed in with food and beverage sessions that really are designed to educate, communicate, and talk about the industry as a whole, sharing some pain points, obviously looking to grow and wow the guest at every corner, because food and beverage, as you know, is kind of an easy target to.
So what are some of the subjects that somebody would come and they would hear?
Oh, for example, you have there's things like the supply chain and procurement. I mean, supply chain and procurement is a difficult thing to wrap your head around, because there's people that you used to rely on for years that didn't make it through COVID. Now you have to realize, okay, now we need some supplementary vendors and supplies, but they still have to be quality. They still have to be able to service the globe, which is definitely different from a brick and mortar hotel. Then you have health and wellness and the onboard experience. You have the different luxury options and expedition.
Wait, I don't want to miss that little nuance there, because when people say health and wellness, we're not just talking about healthy foods and things, but sometimes people actually go on cruises, or they go to health and wellness hotels or spas in order to have a certain lifestyle experience, which includes the food and the menu that goes along with it. Because with all those cruise ships, cruise companies out there are ones that specialize in wellness and fitness as part of their program.
And that is by design, Rob, because the customer has said so. The customer has used this. They use this quite well. And when they fill out the comment cards and they say, hey, we'd like to see something a little bit different. We're really looking after our bodies, what goes into the body. Maybe you can start looking at some menu development. And that process is just taken off. And you can see the trajectory of that guest and what they're looking for being addressed by the cruise line. And that's specifically, that's really an ideal situation for F&B at sea, is to hear what the guest is saying, understand what the cruise line professionals are looking to do and to grow. And obviously guest satisfaction is premier. And when you're talking about food and beverage, they do it like nobody else. So when they have that opportunity to listen and to grow from the comments of the guest, they're taking it to heart and they're doing it. And I'm not going to disparage the hotel industry, but you can use this all day, and still get the same result. When you do this on the cruise industry, when you send in your comment card, they get read, they get understood, they get formulated, and they get actioned. And this is how this health and wellness.
There's a difference between hotels and cruise lines. A lot of times people will affectionately refer to the hotel industry as heads in beds. And a lot of times trying to get people to use the food and beverage, if they're not in a hotel for a meeting, it may be breakfast, right? But they're eating out, they're going to the community. In this case, this is an integral part of the experience. It is a huge part of the experience, a main part of the experience that somebody has on a cruise line. And I would point out, by the way, we shouldn't forget that it's not only the thousands of passengers on a cruise ship, but also there may be an equal number or several thousand employees on the cruise ship. They also are part of the experience. And a lot of people don't know they may spend 6 months at sea on a contract, and so they're eating every day. You got to keep those people happy too.
Without question. And that's where I get back into the training and the legendary service delivery of the cruise industry. The crew are just beyond stellar. They're trained in safety. They're trained in hospitality. but moreover, they just exude that whole hospitality process at every corner. You see them in the hallways as you're heading to your stateroom. You see them behind the bar. You see them walking. It's unbelievable how you feel so welcomed and so invited into this experience. It is.
So I need to ask you, how does technology fit into? I mean, we are Tech
Sure,
Bites and
sure.
the IFBTA. So how does technology, fit in? Are the standard, providers who do technology in the hospitality industry available to cruise ships? Are there nuances that are different besides the structural and logistical nuances that might be different? Or is it really the same things, in just a different venue?
So this is a real growing segment, right? This is something that is really being adapted by the industry. They have quite a bit of IT programs. They have wings of IT staff at the corporate offices, but they're trying to understand what the guest needs are and maybe anticipate some more of the guest needs. So looking at how they're, can they define? Because let me back up. Once you've taken one cruise, odds are pretty impressive that you're going to take another and another. They're
And
that
the
good.
expectation is
Exactly.
not only on that cruise ship line, which is going to use loyalty systems to try to keep you in, but if you take a cruise on another line, you're going to have a certain
Correct.
expectation of what you're going to get. And then you've put on top of that, a lot of cruise ships are starting to put in brand name or famous chefs,
Right.
celebrity
Sure.
chefs in
Sure.
there. So now they have an experience that they thought they were going to get if they go to the restaurant, in New York City or Miami, that they're going to get on the cruise. And
Unquestionably.
so it's the same thing, right?
Unquestionably. And that has really kind of just flowered into the guest experience, right? Because you go to a place that the chef is Daniel Boulud, or you go to Jacques Papin. These are stout icons of the culinary world. But moreover, it's produced daily with the same passion and the same end results, the same standards, and the volume that they produce it at is completely staggering. It's
Absolutely. And
insane.
that in itself is a training piece as well. I liken this a lot to the gaming industry and some of the large
Sure.
casinos, 24-hour food service, but it's not necessarily the same thing because people come and go, and you have an audience that you have to keep engaged and entertained for 3 days to 10 days to
Sure.
I'm going around the world. So it's really a different challenge for them. When you were putting together the program for this year, and since you've been involved for the last 3 years, and you're talking to people about what they need, what are the hot topics that people are talking about this year versus like in the past? What's the emerging piece?
Well, some of the emerging pieces are the sustainability efforts and how they can get better at sustainability. Some of the vendors that they have are really coming into. Let's talk about something less sexy but very powerful. It's waste. Just imagine the waste produced on just from a kitchen, just from the kitchens.
Right.
Some of these ships have 23 bars, multiple. I mean, just dozens of restaurants. These are things that can produce copious amounts of waste. There's recyclable. How they manage that is remarkable. That also plays into just to revisit the past for a second. That also plays into some of the technology that they're using to manage that.
Well, if you think about that, I mean, waste is something of what do you do with it later and how do you get rid of it in efficiency, but also in how do you, prepare your food, you produce, you order, your supply
Sure.
chain. You want to reduce waste and duplication there and be able to use things. So I suppose that menu development itself, is a very hot subject for people of using technology and tools to develop the menu, but meet consumer tastes and also stay within the guidelines, of what you want to serve.
Absolutely. Meet their needs, exceed their needs, but also there's a segment where, okay, do we have to accept, um, can we maybe change or encourage some change into some packaging, perhaps? And those are other conversations that are happening with cruise lines to certain suppliers about, does it have to be in plastic? Can we do something else? I'll give you an example. we had a company, and this is amazing. You want to talk about chefs rolling up their sleeves and solving problems. We had this company that bought shipping containers and converted the inside of a shipping container, and for lack of better terms, maybe used like a rain gutter on your home, kind of inverted them into a vertical with holes in it. Put some water, some
To go ahead and grow
grow
plants, hydroponics.
grow unbelievably flavorful, impactful, and just wow on their lettuces and edible flowers and so forth. But they can combine. They can chocolate basil.
Yeah, and
Egg,
by the way, you can put that in public facing areas as
of
well
course,
because Disney does
sure,
that. People are fascinated. Now, to me, that's technology too.
sure it
That's the
is.
technology of growing foods. That's sustainability. It's using less water. You're able to grow it
Correct,
anywhere. So I think that's a great example. So let me just, as we get towards the end of our session here, so we're talking about April 9th and
correct,
10th in Miami, in Wynwood area,
correct.
and it's part of the larger Sea Trade show that is going on, but this is a specialty area in food and beverage. So, who are you expecting? Who's the anticipated attendee, or who is this really for? Who's going to
Right.
attend?
So we have cruise line executives, cruise line food and beverage. You have presidents, you have vice presidents, you have procurement teams, you have all the buyers for various categories, whether it's dairy, seafood, what have you. In addition to that, you have just people that are looking, other vendors coming in to see what this buzz is all about and how they can get in. Um, the growth that we've achieved from last year to this year is double. So last year we had a capacity of, I think, 60 some odd. Now we're over 120 some odd vendors, closer to 150. And it's not just anybody who wants to come in. There's a screening. You have to have some sort of a tie-in. You have to have the ability to go.
Well, they should be a qualified,
There it is.
qualified
There
buyer
it
or
is.
qualified person
There
that's
it is.
there.
We've had the mom and pops that want to come in because let's face it, everybody with a widget or a service wants to get into the cruise industry. They just want to.
Well, you know what it is, because, and you're in Miami, as I think about it, these reality TV programs where they're showing, the small little, yachts that are there and they're doing the food and beverage. So I'm sure that that there's a lot of people that are interested in that, may not be the industry professionals
Correct.
in it as well. It occurs to me though that from what you're telling us is that with food and beverage being such a large piece of the cruise ship industry and the shipping industry as well, not just cruise ships, that you would think that almost everybody that would attend or have anything to do in the industry, from engineers for
Sure.
equipment down to the chefs, down to the hotel managers, down to guest relations, down to the GMs, the captains, they all are going to want to come to this special area.
Absolutely, absolutely, and really, the central focus is the cruise industry and all that encompasses. Because, like you said, there's engineers, of course, there's chefs, there's food and beverage directors, there's people in charge of human resources, which is another key element. Think of all the staff required to produce breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks for 7,600 people on board one ship. I mean, there's staff, there's a when you attend this thing, you have, oh, and by the way, there's all these different activations, there's all these different demonstrations. I mean, we
People have to be able to
have to be
experience
able
it.
to experience it. But in this case, Rob, this is significant. We have certified master chefs. Now, that term is kind of loosely thrown out into the industry, but I can tell you, as a certified executive chef, certified master chefs, there's only about 72 walking the planet. And we have like three or four of them coming in. And what they do is they're going to not expose, they're going to share some things that are just, you know,
Their tips
oh
and
my
tricks.
word, yes. And how
But
much,
also, I suspect, by
really
the
how
way,
much higher than the,
nothing goes better with food than
oh
wine.
my
And
word.
I'm going to guess that on the wine side, we have the equal part of it with the people that are also pairing that up. It's really food and beverage.
Absolutely. So it's really quite the event. It's actually the premier food. Listen, I've gone to the Chicago shows. I've gone, and that, much like yourself, have been to many shows. But there tends to be a point of a rinse and repeat, and we won't do that, because we want to continue to edify and grow and move the needle with culinary professionals and beverage professionals.
So, Rick, we were just talking about different parts of the program, and I did notice there's awards.
Correct.
So can you just tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So inside the cruise, inside the F&B at sea, we have all these different cruise lines with their restaurants and bar programs. And we've come to the realization that we need to recognize some of the excellence that's out there floating around at sea. So we've come up with awards for the best beverage programs at sea, the best restaurant at sea, the most sustainable F&B programs at sea, and one of my favorites is the F&B Maverick Award. Now this is when chefs got to go, oh man, that is so unbelievably ideal, and that Maverick Award really kind of is like a badge of honor for sure.
And I bet a lot of them don't get that recognition.
Well, that's the thing. And by the way, it's judged by culinarians. It's judged. We have judges from the Culinary Institute of America. We have judges from Chaîne de Rôtisseurs. We have judges from all kinds of food and beverage, integral food and beverage companies and elements. But it's rewarding excellence is what it does. But we do the same for vendors as well. We have most sustainable product, trailblazing product of the year, innovative F&B product, wellness pioneer product. We're trying to grow and exonerate those that are making a difference in the lives of those people that cruise.
It's clearly something that they don't normally get
Absolutely.
to experience, and they may not get that recognition. So it's a great part of the program, great speakers, content, exhibits, and awards.
Correct.
You have something that the rest don't have. The people that are attending your show and the people that are the operators in this industry, whether that show is in Miami, whether that show's in Singapore or Hong Kong or wherever that show is going to be, they are operating around the world. They are truly around the world. They are not just in one place, and you have to be able to do that. So Rick, I want to thank you for being a food and beverage ambassador, telling us about Food and Beverage at Sea, which is the 9th and 10th of April at the Manna Wynwood Convention Center in Miami. Right. And it's part of the larger trade show that's been around a long time, really playing up the maritime and the sea trade world out there. But it's such an important offering and area. And I think people should attend. And if they want to find out more about it, they should go online and they should look up Food and Beverage at Sea. And they'll find it online, how to register and how to attend. They do need to qualify. And all I can tell you is they should just cruise on down there.
I'm with you.
And attend the show and get to experience what you've been bringing to the table for the food and beverage industry and the cruise industry. So I want to thank you for joining us on TechBytes today.
I appreciate that, Rob. Great meeting you, and thanks for the time.
Great. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
This podcast is brought to you by the International Food and Beverage Technology Association. The IFBTA is the industry's voice of food service, hospitality, and retail technology, providing thought leadership as your single, impartial, and go-to resource. The IFBTA offers in-person and online communities to connect with your peers, the exchange, an all-encompassing global technology resource, and an industry-wide professional education and certification program. The bottom line is the IFBTA is your place to gather, learn, and share in conversations like the one we're having today. Thank you for joining us on this episode of TechBytes, powered by the IFBTA. I'm Rob Grimes, your host, and I look forward to taking our next bite of technology together.